Time for another board game review, and this time we have the game MAZING. This was sent to me by the designer Clint Amstrup, and it is a building, navigating, and tearing down of mazes game. Let me show you how to play. So in MAZING, each player attempts to cross the board diagonally from their starting corner, while also building barriers to block their opponents. Be the first player to travel across the board to the opposite corner, and you win. So we've got our pawn set up. Each player gets 4 cards. If you're playing with 2 players, you get 6 cards each. Now if you look at the cards, some of them are maze cards, meaning shapes you can put on the board, and some of them are action cards. So on your turn, you pick a card and you play it. So let's say black plays this card. So black might want to make it trickier for, let's say, player yellow. So they could put these here. After you play your card, you discard it and you draw a new card. After you've played your card, you roll your dice. 4, and black can move 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can only move vertically or horizontally, not diagonally. 2 or more players may be on the same space at the same time, but you may not share a space with a wall barrier token, meaning you can't go on top of the walls. That's the whole point of the maze, you dingus. If you're playing with 2 players, you can play 2 cards on each turn. So as you can see, there's all sorts of different shapes you can play. Some of them they're vaguely Tetris-esque. So as the game progresses, there's going to be more and more shapes on the board. And the more shapes you play, the more maze-like this board will become, and the harder it'll be to navigate through the spaces. You can place your shape anywhere on the board. You can't pass through barrier walls. You'll need to navigate around them. And there always needs to be at least one exit route for every player. That means you can't permanently block someone off, be like, hey, sorry yellow, you just don't get to play anymore. No, you can't block them permanently. And all wall patterns are reversible, meaning I could play this shape and do it like this. And then you have action cards, and action cards have to be played before you roll the dice and move your pawn. Buster lets you remove 1 wall token from anywhere. It could be here, it could be here, it doesn't matter. Any token. Double Buster lets you remove 2 touching wall tokens, so it could be like these 2 or these 2. Leap lets you jump over 1 barrier, meaning yellow here, if they played leap, they could actually jump over this wall onto the other side. Double leap lets you jump 2 barrier tokens, so pink could theoretically jump over these 2 tokens here. Lose a turn, you can make a player lose a turn of your choice. Setback lets you move an opponent's pawn, so you could move, or black could maybe move yellow here or something like that. And double setback lets you move an opponent's pawn 2 spaces, so you could move, I don't know, pink 2 spaces back. And that's the game. Now, obviously, as you play the game, more and more shapes will go on the board, and the board will look a lot more complicated, like a maze. But otherwise, it's pretty simple. Just play a card, roll the dice, move your pawn. That's it. Whoever gets their pawn all the way to the other corner of the board first is the winner. So I appreciate that the game is very easy to learn. Easy to play, easy to learn. You can learn it in minutes, like 5 minutes, and you can basically start playing. The idea of creating a maze to block your opponents is a pretty fun idea, especially if you have 4 players all placing tiles all over the place. It's satisfying laying down tiles and seeing the board fill up and get more complex with your mazes. The action cards are honestly a bit overpowered. Being able to just bust through a wall or jump over a wall is very powerful in this game, and it can completely disrupt any effort that other players are putting forth to block other players. If you're lucky enough to get action cards in your hand, you can just kind of ignore all the obstacles people are doing for that turn, which is, I mean, it's a big deal in this game because it's a movement-based kind of racing game. I feel like instead maybe all the players should have a finite set of those actions or something like that. Otherwise, just, I mean, the randomness of, oh, hey, I only have shape cards. Oh, hey, I have action cards. I'm just gonna ignore all your obstacles is pretty rough. But the biggest problem of the game for me is actually using the dice for movement. The randomness of a 1 to 6 dice is really rough. If you roll a 1 and someone else rolls a 6 on their turn, the difference there is staggering in this game. Even if you're making amazing mazes and blocking all your opponents, if you roll a 1, that turn is for naught. I mean, you move 1 space, and that difference between those rolls is staggering. What I think would almost work better is if everyone had maybe a set amount of movement spaces they could do, or action points or something like that, and then you could maybe use some of those action points for the actions, and then sacrifice your movement. That way everyone would have the same amount of movement available to them and the actions, but the actions would detract from the movement. That's just an idea. But basically what I think this game needs is balance. Because as it is with the 1 to 6 dice rolling and the possibility of action cards, it feels too random, almost like a kid's game. And if that's what you're looking for, that's fine. I think kids would enjoy this, but as an adult, it's a bit too random for my tastes. Anyways, it's a fun idea, and constructing the mazes is fun on its own, but honestly, the lack of balance is pretty rough for this game.